Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name's Christina and today is the 13th, which means it's spooky story time. So the spooky story series is a series on my channel where I tell you guys a ghost story and I do my makeup at the same time. This series is largely inspired by Bailey Sarian. I said it in the first video, but I keep getting comments about this. It was inspired by Bailey Sarian. It's always in the description, as well as a bunch of other people like Robert Welsh, Jamie French, and a bunch of other people are doing series very similar to this. So yeah. So today's story is going to largely be the alleged true story of what inspired the movie The Haunting of Connecticut. I don't have any hair clips in here. I'm wildly unprepared. I have already done my eyebrows and the rest of my face I probably won't really talk about for the rest of this video, but if you are interested in anything that I use, it will be down in the description. So the movie The Haunting in Connecticut was released in 2009, and I believe I watched it when it came out. I would have been 19 when that came out. I believe I saw it. I don't believe I enjoyed it particularly. There's a lot of controversy around this movie because, like a lot of movies, it decided at the beginning it was going to put based on real events or based on actual events, based on a true story. So that's why I said the alleged true story, because there's a lot of controversy on whether or not this is a real event. My AC just decided to come on and my camera's dying at the same time. The ghosts don't want me to tell a story. So The Haunting in Connecticut, the true story, or the alleged true story, and what the movie's based on, is based on a family named the Snedeker family, is I believe how it's pronounced. I used Google Translate and she was wildly uninformative, so I'm pretty sure it's Snedeker, just based on how it's spelt, but please correct me phonetically down in the comments if I mispronounce that. Snedeker family consisted of the parents, Carmen and Alan Snedeker, and then they had 4 kids, I believe. They had 3 sons, a daughter, and then they also had 2 nieces, and they all needed to move together. The reason they needed to move was their eldest son had Hodgkin's lymphoma disease, so they moved closer to where a more reputable hospital was going to be, so that's why they ended up moving to Connecticut. It makes sense they would have moved to be closer to their son's hospitals. That makes a lot of sense, and because of probably the cost of how much all of his hospital stays, visits, and all of that would be, including treatments. And it makes sense, especially with how large the family was, that they would need to find a reasonably priced place to live. Well, all of that makes sense. I don't really follow this next move, whether or not it was cost effective or not. It just seems like a really weird place to want to move with a family of children, but who am I to judge, you know? They find a home near the hospital in Connecticut where they've decided to move, like I've said, and they discover that it's not technically a home. I mean, it is, but the home was originally a funeral parlor. I mean, I'm into morose and creepy, but I probably wouldn't want to move like 6 children into a home where, you know, they had funerals commonly. I mean, that's what they say about old houses too, because back in the day, people used to have the funerals at their house. And that's why, like, a lot of people don't like old homes, because, like, obviously they're haunted. And like I said, a lot of people believe they made this choice just due to financial reasons. It was just probably more affordable. I can't imagine why it would be more affordable. I'm sure people were just putting offers in left and right for this place. But that's why a lot of people say they opted to move into this. But they could have also just had, like, a creepy sense of humor, or a creepy sense of things. My dad, growing up, always wanted to drive a hearse. So, I mean, maybe it was one of those things, you know, they thought it was interesting that it was a funeral parlor, you know. It didn't seem that initially anything super creepy was happening. No one really noticed anything immediately, but not too long after they moved into the house, the mom, Carmen, started noticing some things seem to be going missing. Things, you know, are getting out of place, which I feel like in a house full of children isn't that weird. That's not like the weirdest thing I've ever heard, you know, they're gonna probably move stuff around. Seems pretty normal. But that was like the first thing that they started noticing, was just like, just seemed like their possessions were ending up in places that they were not put or moved, or it would be in one place in 1 second and then they would look back and it would be completely not in that place anymore. So strange, a little suspicious, but nothing like too like, that wouldn't frighten me. I just probably think I was being an observant, like I usually am. Which, like I said, those were all pretty innocent. It wasn't until the children started doing what children do in horror movies, where they start seeing stuff or talking to people that aren't there. But the kids in the house did start saying that they were seeing a strange man walking around the house, and they would frequently like talk to them as well. But basically they were saying there's a stranger in the house walking around. We don't know who he is, stranger danger. The kids didn't really describe the man too much, but I did see that they said it was a strange man with long black hair. These sightings and the things going missing go on for just a little bit, but the strangest thing that happened and the most concerning to them was their eldest son, the one they had moved for, was now having violent outbursts in the house, and he seemed to have had like a personality shift after moving into this home. The parents, being parents, are naturally disturbed by this, especially when the change in personality is coming with extremely violent outbursts from him. This behavior wasn't normal for their eldest son prior to moving into this house, so it was definitely more alarming, along with having these other strange occurrences happening at the same time, of the kids seeing a stranger in the house, of the kids feeling uncomfortable and feeling like they're, you know, seeing people just in the house, and with items going missing and moving and ending up in just places where they don't remember putting them. So all in all, the creep factor's there, you know? The house feels a little spook. I mean, that's kind of what you get for buying a funeral parlor, but you know, you do you. The violent outbursts from the eldest son were getting worse over time, to the point where he was starting to attack family members. So again, as parents do, that's concerning, especially when you have other kids in the house that, you know, you need to protect as well. The doctor ended up saying that their eldest son was schizophrenic, and I couldn't find if they had put him on medicine or anything for it, but I did see that the family was not convinced that he was schizophrenic, and instead was convinced that it was something in the house causing their son to have violent outbursts. Parents definitely leaned more towards the house being the cause, and that it was specifically the ghosts in the house that were making their son become violent and have all of these outbursts. From there on, the claims that the family make, or specifically the parents make going forward, are really awful, of what they claim was happening in this house, that the ghosts were doing to them even specifically. I won't go into it because I did not put a trigger warning on this video, but the things they were definitely claiming, and if you've seen the movie, the things that they were claiming are just kind of awful. And if they're making it up, even worse. But if it is real, terrifying. But basically, the parents were claiming that the ghosts in the house were essentially torturing them specifically, and also their children, and that these awful things were happening in this house and it wasn't safe. But they still chose to live here, and I understand if it was because of financial reasons, but they are still in this house at this point, claiming that all of these awful things are happening. At the end of their rope, the parents invite over the notorious paranormal investigators, Ed and Lorraine Warren. If that name doesn't sound familiar to you, then you probably don't spend a lot of time watching either horror movies or reading about ghost stories or paranormal stories, but Ed and Lorraine Warren are basically the, you know, the paranormal investigators that brought us the Annabelle doll, they brought us the Amityville Horror House, and also the Haunting in Connecticut. They have touched all of those things, and they have claimed for all of them to be paranormal. So a lot of the speculation around this story is because they're involved. So there's a lot of chatter that Ed and Lorraine made everything up. And then there's a lot of people that believe everything that they've done. It really just depends on who you ask. But Ed and Lorraine Warren get called to this house in Connecticut to figure out what's going on, see if they can help us, see if they can figure out what is happening to our son, why are we getting tortured by these ghosts in this house, what can we do? Ed Warren is a demonologist, a lecturer, and he's also an author. Lorraine, his wife, claims to be a clairvoyant and a medium. So together they make a dynamic duo. Ed and Lorraine end up spending weeks at the house in Connecticut trying to figure out and get to the bottom of what's going on in the household. What are these ghosts doing? What do they want? Are they demons? Are they just trapped spirits? What do they want? What do we need to do? Poof, be gone. They also claimed that spending this amount of time in the house would give them the full demonic experience so they could really know what's going on to really help this family. Ed and Lorraine claimed that while they had their stay in the house, that the same things were happening to them. These ghosts and these demons were really just torturing them and really messing with them, but they were also revealing their secrets to them at the same time. I feel like because of this story, I need extra contour in my life today. You know, let's just sharpen out these cheekbones like nobody's business. By the end of Ed and Lorraine's investigation, they claimed what was happening in the household. The morticians that were originally running the funeral parlor were practicing necromancy, and that's where a lot of the demonic energy was coming from, was from them opening up the portal and doing necromancy while being morticians. Because they practice necromancy, they say that they infused the house with deep evil, demons. This bad energy that was released because of these morticians doing awful necromancy in the house was the reason why their kids were basically being tortured, why their eldest son was having a personality shift, and why the parents were basically just terrified to live in this house. Ed and Lorraine then performed an exorcism to get rid of all of these evil spirits in the home and make it safe for the family's return. After the exorcism was complete, the family moved back in. And that is the story of the haunting in Connecticut, based on the real events that happened, allegedly. So that is basically how the movie goes. A lot of like awful things happen with those ghosts ahead of time. But like, we only have the account of the Snedeker family for this, saying that these ghosts just tortured them the whole time. And that they would hear things and they would see this man with long hair and that the children were acting strange. All of this is only from the family's account, and then Ed and Lorraine Warren. Depends on how you view them, honestly. But the reason I said allegedly at the beginning of this video is because this might be a spooky movie ghost story that was entirely fabricated. And depending on what you believe, you may believe all ghost stories are fabricated. But this one especially is just, there's so much information out there that just disproves everything the Snedekers ever said about this house. One, they ended up living in this house. Again, it was a rental. They ended up living in this house for 2 years, which, if it was for financial reasons, I could see for a year, because most, you know, rental contracts are just for a year, and then I would try and get out of my lease, right? But they ended up staying in the home for 2 years. Also, since it was just a rental, they didn't own the home, so the people that were renting the house out to them claimed that, wow, putting the lower lash line really changes the whole look, doesn't it? The family that was renting it out to them also claimed that the house was never a funeral parlor to begin with. So all of that wasn't even true, according to the family. Now again, you could argue that this family was just trying to make sure they could keep renting out this house because, oh no, to sit on a property, you know, that you can't ever rent out anymore, that would suck, you know? But they claimed the entire claims that the family was making were all false, and that none of it was true at all. None of it. But again, like I said, they're trying to rent it out, so maybe it was a funeral parlor and they just didn't want that information out there like that because, you know, you want to continue renting it out. A book was also written about this haunting, and this is where the other claims of it not being real come in, because a lot of people believe that Ed Warren was trying to fluff the piece. So the person writing the book interviewed Ed Warren, and he basically said, you have basically the whole story, just add bits to it and make it scary. Implying that, you know, they basically had the whole story, but you were free to do whatever you wanted to sell books, basically. So, allegedly, maybe, possibly, there were some not true events in the book, which and then, you know, got turned into a movie. I'm done basically telling this whole story, but my makeup is not done. Let me finish my eyes real quick. I even have lashes today, which I haven't worn in forever. My eye feels like it's watering though, so maybe a bad idea, but let me finish up my makeup and then I can wrap up this story. So basically, that is the story of the haunting in Connecticut. Basically, a family moved into a house that was haunted by necromanced demon things, and their children started to be affected, they started to be affected, and a movie was made about it. But was it really a true story? Up in the air still. What do you guys think? I know a lot of us don't really believe in ghosts, and I know some of us do believe in ghosts, but I feel like anytime Ed and Lorraine Warren get involved in something, I'm always a little skeptical, even though some of the best ghost stories have come from them. Like the Amityville Horror House is one that I'm definitely debating on doing next, just because it's fascinating. But as always, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's spooky story. If you liked the video, definitely hit the thumbs up button. These videos go up once a month on the 13th. I do actually have a membership started that I haven't like officially launched, but it is there if we would rather this just be a members only kind of thing. I'm just not really sure because I don't know how I feel about charging for this, but if I did do a members only, I might do 2 of these a month instead of just once a month, but let me know. And as always, guys, remember, there are always spooks to be found, and I hope that means I see all of you in my next video. Bye!